Have you ever felt like your life is too loud? Not just with sound, but with expectations, distractions, desires, and constant motion? What if the thing you truly need isn't more but less? Less noise, less stimulation, less chasing. What if the key to unlocking your true self lies in the silence you've been avoiding? In this video, we explore a powerful truth inspired by the timeless wisdom of Carl Jung. When the body goes silent, the soul finally speaks. Through the ancient and misunderstood practice of abstinence, whether it's solitude, fasting, or celibacy, we're not turning away from life. We're turning inward. We're creating space for the deepest parts of ourselves to rise. Because within that silence lies guidance, clarity, and transformation. This isn't just about discipline. It's about awakening. Join us on a journey that reveals why stepping back from the noise may be the most radical act of self-love and self-discovery you can take. Let's listen to what your soul has been waiting to say. Chapter 1. The Noise of the Body. The body is a magnificent machine, powerful, sensitive, complex, but it's also loud. Not loud in the way we think of noise, but loud in its constant demands: hunger, pleasure, movement, pain, exhaustion. Our bodies are always communicating, always reacting, always craving something. And in the modern world, our senses are under constant attack. Lights flash, notifications buzz, advertisements scream for attention. Pleasure is available at the tap of a screen, and escape is only a scroll away. This constant stream of stimulation creates a psychological fog. It keeps us fixated on the surface of life, on the appetites of the flesh, the distractions of the external world. We chase one desire after another, one dopamine hit after the next, never stopping to ask, who am I beneath all of this? What do I truly want? What is my purpose? Carl Jung spoke about the danger of over-identifying with our physical selves. He believed that when we allow the ego, the conscious mind, attached to the material world to dominate our lives, we lose touch with the deeper parts of ourselves. We silence the unconscious, the archetypal, the spiritual, the soul, and the soul doesn't shout. It whispers. It requires space and stillness to be heard. Imagine trying to hear a soft voice in a room full of blaring speakers. That's what it's like to try and access your inner self when your body is in a constant state of noise. Emotional noise, physical tension, mental chatter, every craving, every impulse, every distraction adds to the volume until we forget that there was ever a voice inside us at all. Abstinence, when approached not as repression, but as intention, is one way to turn down the volume. When we stop responding to every desire immediately, we create a gap. In that gap, awareness can enter. We begin to witness the body rather than obey it. We start to ask deeper questions. Why do I crave this? What emotion am I trying to avoid? What fear am I hiding behind this habit? Jung believed that much of human suffering comes from the avoidance of the self. We avoid our traumas, our shadows, our unfulfilled desires, not by confronting them, but by drowning them in noise, addictions, distractions, sensory overload. But when we choose to pause, to abstain, to retreat from the rush, we make room for the truth. And the truth, Jung said, is not always pleasant, but it is always freeing. In abstinence, the body's noise fades, not because we ignore it, but because we observe it without reacting. Hunger becomes a meditation. Solitude becomes a mirror. Celibacy becomes an invitation to understand intimacy in a new light. Every urge becomes a teacher, showing us what still controls us and offering us a chance to reclaim our power. When the body quiets, even for a short time, the soul begins to stir. It has been waiting patiently for space to speak, not in words, but in insights, and images, and dreams, and silence. And in that silence, we begin to meet a self we forgot existed. A self that does not crave, but seeks meaning. A self that does not consume, but creates. A self that is whole. That is the beginning of transformation. Not through force, but through awareness, through courage, through the sacred act of saying, "Not now," to the noise so we can finally say yes to the truth. Chapter 2. The Return of Inner Wisdom. In the quiet after abstinence, something remarkable begins to happen. What once felt like emptiness slowly transforms into awareness. There is a shift not just in mood or mindset, but in the quality of consciousness itself. Carl Jung believed that the soul holds an ancient wisdom, a kind of timeless intelligence that most people never access because they are too busy feeding the body and defending the ego. But when the noise dies down, the inner voice comes forward. This voice isn't loud or demanding. It doesn't command or coerce. Instead, it gently reveals. It presents images, memories, sensations that feel important but aren't always easy to explain. You might remember something from childhood that you hadn't thought about in years. A dream might feel more vivid, more urgent. Emotional patterns that once confused you suddenly become clear. You begin to see your own behaviors not from the surface level of logic, but from a deeper place of intuitive understanding. Jung called this inner knowing the self, not the ego, not the mask we wear in society, but the totality of who we are. He believed that the goal of life wasn't to succeed by worldly standards, but to individuate, to become whole by integrating the conscious with the unconscious, the body with the soul, the shadow with the light. Abstinence plays a key role in this process, because it creates space for this integration to occur. When we abstain from constant gratification, we are no longer numbing ourselves. We feel more, sometimes painfully so. Old wounds resurface. Longing appears. But this is necessary. Pain is not the enemy. Pain is a messenger. And when we sit with it, when we do not run, we discover that it holds lessons we were not ready to hear before. Lessons about who we truly are, what we truly need, and what we are meant to become. As the body's desires fade, our emotional clarity sharpens. We begin to discern which voices belong to us and which have been implanted by society, media, or family expectations. The desire for validation is replaced by a longing for authenticity. The hunger for pleasure is tempered by the hunger for meaning. What once entertained us now feels empty. And what once seemed boring, stillness, simplicity, solitude, now feels sacred. This is the wisdom of the soul returning home. A rebalancing, a remembering. We realize we were never truly lost, just drowned in noise. And now, in the silence of abstinence, the compass of inner wisdom points north again. It doesn't give us easy answers, but it gives us clarity, direction, and perhaps most importantly, it gives us ourselves. Chapter 3. Abstinence as an act of power. We often associate abstinence with restriction, something forced, something moralistic, something imposed by external rules. But Carl Jung invites us to view abstinence not as repression, but as empowerment. It is not about denying pleasure out of guilt or fear. It is about choosing sovereignty over one's body and mind. It is about standing in the center of one's life and saying, "I am not ruled by this." Every time we give in to an impulse without thinking, we surrender a piece of our power. We become predictable, reactive, conditioned, but when we pause, observe, and say no, not because we have to, but because we choose to, we reclaim authority over ourselves. This is not self-denial, it is self-possession. In Jung's framework, power isn't about domination. It's about integration. It's about becoming whole. When we practice abstinence from a place of self-awareness, we are not splitting ourselves apart, we are weaving ourselves back together. We are saying to the child within us, the shadow within us, the unconscious within us, "You are seen. You are heard, but you do not control me." True power comes from freedom, not the freedom to indulge every craving, but the freedom to choose which cravings are worth listening to. This is the sacred paradox of abstinence. By restraining ourselves, we become more free. By going without, we discover what we truly need. By stepping away from pleasure, we find a deeper joy. Abstinence becomes a rebellion against a world that profits from our addictions. It is a refusal to be controlled by advertising, by algorithms, by the artificial hunger engineered by modern life. It is a declaration that our value does not lie in what we consume, but in who we become when we stop consuming. This is why the mystics, sages, and thinkers across history turned to abstain is not because they were saints, but because they sought clarity. They wanted to strip away the noise, the clutter, the distractions, so they could meet the truth within. And that truth was often uncomfortable, even painful, but it was always powerful. To abstain is to remember that we are not just bodies. We are not just appetites. We are not just egos chasing gratification. We are souls on a journey, and every time we choose stillness over stimulation, silence over noise, presence over impulse, we take another step toward becoming whole. Chapter 4. The Alchemy of Solitude. There's a unique kind of silence that can only be found in solitude, the kind that doesn't just quiet the noise around us, but unlocks the wisdom buried deep within. In Jungian psychology, solitude is not a withdrawal from life. It is a necessary phase of transformation. It is in solitude that the mind is no longer required to perform, to please, or to pretend. The masks fall away, the roles dissolve, and what's left is the raw material of the soul, ready to be reshaped through introspection. Many fear solitude because it brings them face to face with their inner world and unfamiliar terrain they've avoided for years through distraction, relationships, work, and entertainment. But Jung taught that this inner confrontation is essential. Just as alchemists sought to transform base metals into gold, the individual must enter solitude to transmute their unconscious material into conscious wisdom. Abstinence from people, noise, and distraction allows the psyche to self-organize. Repressed emotions rise to the surface. Forgotten dreams return. Intuitive insights come forth, not because they are newly created, but because the clutter that once blocked them is finally cleared. We begin to listen not just to the stillness, but to the symbolic language of the unconscious dreams, archetypes, metaphors. This is why solitude has always been central to spiritual awakening. The desert monks, the Himalayan yogis, the wandering mystics, they all understood that solitude is where the soul's voice is the loudest. It is not about being alone, it is about becoming whole. In solitude, the need for external validation dissolves. The pressure to conform disappears, and the self can begin the delicate process of individuation, becoming what it was always meant to be. Jung believed that true healing comes not from avoiding pain, but from encountering it directly. Solitude gives us the space to sit with our wounds without judgment, to understand their origins, to find the meaning behind the suffering. This act of inner witnessing is not passive, it is transformative. It turns pain into purpose, confusion into clarity, silence into symphony. In this alchemical container of solitude, something ancient stirs, not the ego, not the persona, but the self, the divine spark within that has always been waiting to guide us. When the world falls away and we are left with only ourselves, we begin to realize that we are more than enough, that all the answers we've sought externally have been quietly waiting within us all along. And when we return from solitude, whether after a day, a month, or a year, we do not come back as we were. We return with new eyes, with deeper roots, with a voice that carries the weight of truth. We return not to be consumed by the world, but to serve it from a place of centeredness, wisdom, and soul. Chapter 5. The Sacred Integration. After silence, after solitude, after abstinence, what remains? What do we bring back into our daily lives after stepping away from stimulation and desire? The answer, according to Jung, is not simply self-knowledge, but transformation. Not just clarity, but integration. For it is one thing to retreat into silence, it is another to carry that silence into the noise of the world. That is the final test. That is the sacred integration. Jung believed that the human psyche strives for wholeness, not perfection. not purity, but wholeness. That means embracing both light and shadow, instinct and intellect, body and spirit. Through abstinence, we confront parts of ourselves that we often suppress or ignore. But true healing begins when we return to life and allow those insights to shape how we live and lead. Sacred integration is not about renouncing the world. It is about engaging with it from a new center of gravity. We eat again, but now we taste with gratitude. We touch again, but now with reverence. We speak again, but now with purpose. Every act becomes a ritual, every decision an offering. Abstinence has refined our senses, not dulled them. It has purified our attention, not narrowed it. Jung warned of the danger of staying in the abstract, of using spirituality as a means to escape rather than transform. Integration calls us to bring the depth of our inner journey into the outer world, to parent differently, to work more consciously, to love with greater depth. The soul's insights are not meant to stay in solitude, they are meant to ripple outward, healing the spaces we occupy. This return is where the real work begins. It is where we learn to hold both the silence and the noise, the stillness and the movement, the craving and the clarity. Integration is the art of walking in the world with the soul still awake, of being among people without losing ourselves, of living in time while listening to eternity. It is not always easy. Old habits will return. Cravings will resurface. The world will tempt us back into unconsciousness. But now, we are not who we once were. We carry within us the memory of the silence, the strength of the solitude, the wisdom of the soul, and that memory becomes our compass. Abstinence was never about deprivation. It was preparation, a sacred pause to remember who we are. Now, in integration, we live that truth out loud. Not perfectly, not purely, but wholeheartedly. We return to the world not as victims of its noise, but as stewards of our own inner peace. We become bridges between the seen and the unseen, messengers of a deeper way, carriers of a quiet truth in a loud world. This is the path Jung envisioned, not an escape from life, but a conscious, soulful engagement with it. When the body goes silent and the soul speaks, it does not ask us to abandon life. It asks us to transform it from within. Conclusion. When the body goes silent, something extraordinary happens. The soul begins to speak, not with the loud declarations of ego, but with the quiet certainty of truth. In a world saturated with noise, indulgence and distraction, abstinence offers a radical path to clarity. Through intentional pauses, through silence and solitude, we make space for a deeper conversation, the one between our conscious self and the infinite wisdom within. Carl Jung's work reminds us that transformation is not about escaping life, but about meeting it with greater awareness. It is about uniting the outer and inner worlds, listening to the symbols and signs that rise from our unconscious, and allowing the sacred to infuse the ordinary. Abstinence is not the end of desire, it is its refinement. It reveals not what we lack, but what we truly long for. Not surface pleasure, but soul fulfillment. If you felt the quiet tug towards solitude, the yearning to disconnect so you can reconnect more deeply, honor that. It may be your soul inviting you into a greater truth. In the silence and the restraint, in the sacred stillness, you will find not less of yourself but more. So take the pause, embrace the silence, let the body rest, and in that stillness, listen. Your soul has something to say. If this message resonated with you, take a moment to reflect. Share your thoughts in the comments, we would love to hear from you. And if you found value in this journey, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next exploration into the depths of the human spirit. Until next time, stay mindful, stay present, and honor the voice within.